Hello and welcome, it's Graham Roberts here. This is in fact part 2 of a tutorial in connection with Happy Feet here. That is moving a button around a form, or rather actually a panel on a form, and using the right arrow, up arrow, down arrow, left arrow keys. I'm moving those keys now. I'm going right, I'm going down, I'm going left, and I'm going up. And so if you were with me in an earlier tutorial, you would have created something like this. Well, in this tutorial we are going to add to this. What we're going to add is collision detection. So we're going to put a button onto this form and then move this avatar around and signal when there is an intersection between the two rectangles. That's what we're going to do, but I'll explain it as I go along. Okay, so the code that you had last time should be like this. I'll just scroll down so you can see it all. It should be like so. And here is the key pressed handler or event handler there. Now I'm not going to go into all of that again, so what I want to do is just introduce you to the new stuff that you need. Well, straight off, if you're going to have another button on the form, we need to declare it, and so we need to put it here and make it part of the state of this form. So I'm going to copy and paste it into here to save time, your time of watching, as it were. So we're going to call the X coordinate of our new button, which we call target, X, and the Y coordinate we're going to call Y, and they're going to be of type integer. Well, of course we need to declare the button as well, so I'm going to do that next. So this button is the target for the avatar. Now we could just place it on the form in a particular place, but how boring is that? No, what we want to do is have it placed at a random position each time we run our program. To do that, we can use the private we can have a field of type random and have it placed here as a private access. So I've called it _r, it just sort of signifies that it's a random number generator. Well, of course it isn't really a number generator yet because it has no memory. So in the constructor we need to add an instantiation of the random number generator, which is there. Now it should be obvious to you that we're going to apply that random number generator inside the constructor. Here's the constructor. So it's going to be in here somewhere. Actually, I've put a position for it down here. It could be elsewhere, but this is a good position for it to be in. Well, what we need to do here is use the random number generator. So that's what we shall do. So first of all, we will make the fields target X and target Y apply. That is, we're going to give them actual values. They're random numbers and they're in this range of 260 and as you can see here, 2 times 125. Now I've got these values roughly from the dimensions which were here, just to make sure it does sit on the form. It's not important really to have the maths right here because all we're doing is demonstrating. So that will actually set its left coordinate, its top coordinate, as a rectangle. Next, we're going to actually instantiate the button, and I'm going to give it a legend of target just so we can identify it. We've got to really suggest a size for it, and the size will be the same size as the avatar. We also need, of course, to set the location. That is where it's going to be placed, and funnily enough, it's going to be placed at the random number generated values that we just made here. So it's going to be a target X and target Y. Well, next we've got to actually put it onto the panel, and so we do that next, and there we have it. Well, let's run it and see what happens. Here we have it. It's apparently over here, and if I go over, nothing seems to be happening. Of course, there is in fact a collision with target. It's just that we're getting no feedback for that because it's in a different layer, as we can see. We play about here. But in fact, these rectangles, the rectangle of the avatar and the rectangle of the target button, are indeed overlapping, and that's what we're going to exploit in a moment or two. Well, if we move down, we'll see eventually the key handler, or the key pressed event handler. And you can see we've got some new stuff going on down here. Well, the first new stuff here will actually just feed back where the coordinates are of the avatar and also the target, just for our information. Well, here's the first piece, and this is very similar to what we had in the earlier program where we actually feed back this information. Let's see that. Well, I run a program, and as soon as I actually press a key, I'm pressing it down, you can see that it's reporting both where the target is and also the avatar's position. That will help us to see when collisions are reported that they are in fact accurate reports. Now we're getting to the nitty-gritty here, because the next thing we need to do is check out about a collision. Now we're going to do that just after here. So what I'm going to say is, if there is a collision with the target, then we're going to set the title to what we had before really, but forgetting about the target coordinates and just saying there's been a collision. Collision with target method has not been written yet, so we're changing the behavior of this object, and we're going to put that change behavior, that is a method, we're going to put that in between here and here. We're going to declare a method. Now what I've done here, I've put some comments in because, well, it's only polite to, isn't it? This says it checks for an intersection between the rectangle that is the avatar button with the rectangle of the target button, and in order to achieve this, it's passed the button that is the avatar and it's passed the button that is the target, and the heart of the program really, the amendment to the program, the extension, is here. We create a rectangle using the rectangle class, and I've called it me here, is equal to the button. That is the button's bounds, its length and height or width. Now the target's also got the same kind of bounds, and I've called the target him, so it's me and him, and I return me dot intersects him. That is, I'm returning whether or not there is an intersection between me and him. That is, whether or not the avatar is over the target or not. I've already imported rectangle, but you might be asked to do that. Well, let's see if that works. Let's run the program, and we can see that we've got the avatar and we've got the target, and if I move just down a little bit, you can see there's no collision, but just as soon as there is an intersection there is a collision, and it reports one, and as I go over it there's a report of a collision, and similarly as I go over it there. So there's more a collision than not a collision as I go over it, as it were. Well, having achieved this collision detection between, if you like, buttons, it turns out really that you've got a very strong mechanism to make a game, because you can interact with, as an avatar, other objects placed on the panel. They could be boundaries for a maze, or they could be indeed missiles that are approaching the avatar, and when they hit the avatar damage the avatar in terms of the game play and mechanics. So with this facility you can in fact build and create games, simple games. So this is an example of collision detection in Java. Another example of how you might use this is if you didn't want the avatar to actually go over the target, as in a maze. Once you know there's a collision, you don't let the avatar move any further, hence making target a boulder or an obstruction or a wall, something you can't go through. Similarly, if everything around, even if it wasn't visible because of coloration or some other change of property, if lots of buttons were around the avatar would be constrained and would only be able to move on a path where the walls were not. Similarly, you could make it so that the avatar only in fact could walk, as it were, if it was in collision. So in that case it walks over the path that is conceptually in the game the target. I would say it's unlimited, but there are legions of choice about how you can use this to make a foundation for a game, a simple game. Well, thank you for watching this tutorial, and I hope it has been helpful to you. Now, as an addendum, I would say that actually there is another way of doing this. You can have null layouts and move or set locations of your, in this case, button avatar and button target. But there's another way of actually making this kind of game, and that is by using a screen made up of an array of say buttons, and also you can use an underlying virtual grid, that is a one-dimensional or two-dimensional array, to map the locations of objects in your game that you want to kind of play with in the game. And then before you move you check to see what's in that grid and so on, and in a later tutorial I'll be presenting how you can do that.